invoking in world time the timeless truth. Bliss changed to sorrow, knowledge made ignorant. God's force turned into a child's helplessness can bring down heaven by their sacrifice. Whoa. So we had seen in previous, if being had not plunged into the dark, carrying with it its triple mystic cross. And we discussed that. Invoking, calling forth, like an incantation. Invoking in world time, the timeless truth. Bliss changed to sorrow. Knowledge made ignorant. God's force turned into a child's helplessness can bring down heaven by their sacrifice. All these things, this bliss, this perfect happiness, the knowledge that has been made ignorant in our world time, and even in invoking this timeless truth, all these things, even God's force, is turned into a child's helplessness, but all of them can bring down heaven by their sacrifice. Then he takes us to this contradiction. A contradiction founds the base of life. Well, what is that contradiction, that denial, that opposition, that founds or sets up the base of life? The eternal, the divine reality, has faced itself with its own contraries. Being became the void, and conscious force, nescience, and walk of a blind energy, and ecstasy took the figure of world pain. Well, this is what we have seen when the divine decided to play this game with himself. And we have Mother's parables of the four emanations that she sent down that turned into the opposite of what they were meant for, what was the Divine Mother's intention. Therefore, she had to send down four more to contradict their work, where truth was turned into falsehood and love into hate. So that is the contradiction that has founded this base of life. So the eternal, the divine reality, and the reality is a truth of all existence, which is greater and more abiding than all its formations and manifestations. Now, this is a very important line, because Sri Aurobindo says here, this reality is there within each thing and gives to each of its formations its power of being and value of being. That is from the life divine. So this contradiction that founds the base of life, we have there the colon after that, because he wants to continue and tell us the eternal, the divine reality, has faced itself with its own contraries. And then what? Then now there's a semicolon. Being became the void. Well, being became emptiness, the void. And what else happened? Conscious force, hyphenated conscious force, Sri Aurobindo says in The Life Divine again, for the force that builds the worlds is a conscious force. What did it become? Nescience, and even a walk of a blind energy. And ecstasy took the figure of world pain. So ecstasy, this joy and delight, takes the figure, the shape, or the form, or the appearance of world pain. And then he continues on to tell us that in a mysterious dispensation's law, a wisdom that prepares its far-off ends, planned so to start her slow aeonic game. So what is this mysterious dispensation's law? A dispensation is a divine ordering of worldly affairs. So in this mysterious dispensation's law, there is a wisdom that prepares its far-off ends. And we know what those far-off ends are. Mother says wisdom cannot be acquired except through union with the divine consciousness. So that wisdom, this wisdom that prepares its far-off ends, has planned to start her slow aeonic game, planned so to start her slow aeonic game. And what is that game? A blindfold search and wrestle and fumbling clasp of a half-seen nature and a hidden soul. And then what? Because there's so much. A game of hide and seek in twilit rooms, a play of love and hate and fear and hope continues in the nursery of mind, its hard and heavy romp of self-born twins. Lot to go through here. And I think we can ask Vladimir for some things from the Vedas. So we see this blindfold search and wrestle and fumbling. Fumbling here is proceeding awkwardly, uncertainly, blundering. This fumbling clasp, a clasp of what? Of a half-seen nature and a hidden soul. So these are the two things, the half-seen nature and the hidden soul. And then what happens? Well, then we see it's a game of hide and seek. But that game of hide and seek, which children play, and we all know, in twilit rooms, that's sort of lighted as if by twilight. And what is it? It's a play of love and hate and fear and hope that continues in the nursery of mind, its hard and heavy romp of self-born twins. Okay, a romp is a lively or boisterous frolic. Self-born is born from oneself or by oneself, originating from oneself. Vladimir, something from the Vedas?
Well, this is altogether Vedic, yes, from the beginning.
Yes.
So this basically the contradiction that founds the base of life. He is also defining it before in the enigma of the darkened vasts. Yes. So non-being's night could never have been saved if being had not plunged into the dark. This is the very idea of double creation, yes, which is always in the Veda. It's a Vedic idea. So there are verses like the whole first creation became unsteady and shaky, and if he would not enter, so he entered it to make it steady. So basically that fallen those fallen emanations, like consciousness in light turned into the darkness, the bliss turned into the suffering, the truth turned into the falsehood, and finally life into the death. So death appeared for the first time. These fallen emanations fell into oblivion. They became not. So to say, they are not. And to save them and to start this tardy process of evolution, the divine kind of delegated out of itself again, the Divine Mother, the force which penetrated, entered it. Yes, Atman Atmanam Abhisam Vivesha. He entered himself by himself, as it is said in the Veda. And when he did this, that fallen part became as if steady. It had its role, its place. So that's so mysteriously he says, non-being's night could never have been saved. And this to be saved has two meanings. To be saved as night and to be saved as not night. Both are here. Sri Aurobindo is so deeply kind of putting the words. Night could not be saved because it is not, so to say, and then it was saved, and it became the night because the divine entered into it. It had its place in the evolution. It has its place now in the evolution because the divine is there, because he is there. Yes, the inconscient does its work. There is another phrase in Savitri. Because he is there, the world forgets to die. So basically this is that saving the night for the work of evolution. This is profoundly Vedic. Not only saving the night out of her nightness, so to say, into her light, but also saving her to do her work for the evolution. And this is something profound.
And the heavy romp of self-born twins.
Right. These are day and night, basically these, and twilight, which is kind of joining two together, which is holding both of them, the light and the darkness, this constant exchange of these inputs. These are two mothers of the fire, of the flame, which is born by them and nourished by them in its growth. That flame of the divine is growing here and nourished by both of them, two mothers, night and dawn. It's profoundly Vedic.
So we have this play of love and hate, this play of fear and hope that continues in the nursery of mind.
And you know,
go ahead.
One more thing which was coming from you. It's from Shakespeare. You remember how Juliet says, "My only love sprung from my only hate."
Yes.
This is something which is deeply spiritual, because Shakespeare could not make such a phrase. So this understanding has to be much deeper than just on the surface, some kind of. So this is what Sri Aurobindo also highlights here, that they are twins born together.
Yes. Of course, he's in the future poetry. He lists Shakespeare at the top, along with Vyasa, I believe, and Kalmiki, of the highest poetic energy of all time, from the overmind. So let's continue then, we see. At last, the struggling energy can emerge and meet the voiceless being in wider fields. Then can they see and speak, and breast to breast, in a larger consciousness, a clearer light, the two embrace and strive, and each know each, regarding closer now, the playmate's face. Isn't this beautiful? This has to be purely Vedic. Continue, Vladimir. The two embrace and strive, and each know each.
There is a beautiful picture by Huta made with the mother. You remember that 8 when they come and see each other, like in the.
Yes.
This is for this passage, actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is a fundamentally Vedic and fundamentally philosophical in every way. There is yin and yang and all these signs, of two sources of energy, Purusha and Prakriti, and so on. Yeah. Two creations meet and they build up anew the third one.
Even in these formless coilings, he could feel matter's response to an infant stir of soul. Yes, these coilings, these connected spirals, these concentric rings, actually, or winding rings. Then, even in these formless coilings, he could feel this response of matter to an infant stir of soul. In nature, he saw the mighty spirit concealed. Notice nature and spirit are both capitalized here, because spirit is the principle of conscious life. It's even the vital principle in humans. It's the consciousness above mind, the Atman or self, which is always in oneness with the divine. So in nature, he saw this mighty spirit, but it was concealed. And he watched the weak birth of a tremendous force. And then pursued the riddle of Godhead's tentative pace. But why is it tentative? It's not yet fully worked out or concluded or agreed on. It's a kind of provisional pace. Not sure, uncertain, not definite or positive, even hesitant. But he pursued this riddle of Godhead's tentative pace, and that pace, in that pace, he heard the faint rhythms of a great unborn muse. Now, Sri Aurobindo has a rather humorous statement in the letters on Savitri about the muse. He says, the mystic muse is more of an inspired bacchant of the Dionysian wine than an orderly housewife. And anyone who has ever written poetry knows that to be so true. At times, the muse seems to be totally absent. And Sri Aurobindo tells us, always remember the muse, because one day she'll come again. And now he hears these faint rhythms of a great unborn muse. Then came a fierier breath of waking life, and there arose from the dim gulf of things, I have to get the next page, the strange creations of a thinking sense, existences half real and half dream. A life was there that hoped not to survive. Beings were born who perished without trace. Events that were a formless drama's limbs and actions driven by a blind creature will. So we must remember now, he is in the kingdoms of the little life. He's traveling through all these planes of creation. And he sees that in this kingdom of the little life, there are these strange creations of a thinking sense. There are existences that are half real and half dream. But this life that was there in this kingdom of the little life, it hoped not to survive. Extraordinary. Beings were born who perished without trace. Events that were a formless drama's limbs and actions driven by a blind creature will. So it's a strange world. A seeking power found out its road to form. Patterns were built of love and joy and pain, and symbol figures for the moods of life. An insect hedonism fluttered and crawled and basked in a sunlit nature's surface thrills, and dragon raptures, python agonies, crawled in the marsh and mire and licked the sun. Well, this is extraordinary, really. Let's go back and see. A seeking power found out its road to form. So it found that path to form. Because if there's nothing, if there's no form, there's emptiness, transcendence. A seeking power found out its road to form. Patterns were built of love and joy and pain, and even symbol figures for the moods of life. But what else was there now? An insect hedonism fluttered and crawled. The hedonism is a devotion to pleasure as a way of life. So this insect hedonism, look at that, insect hedonism, fluttered and crawled and basked. To bask is to lie exposed to pleasant warmth or sunshine, and basked in a sunlit nature's surface thrills. And dragon raptures, python agonies. Look how Sri Aurobindo is telling us how powerful this is. These raptures are dragon raptures. And here he's using dragon as an adjective to raptures. And dragon raptures, and then python agonies. Again, python referring to the agonies. Crawled in the marsh and mire and licked the sun. Now, huge armored strengths shook a frail quaking ground. Well, this goes back to our understanding of the dinosaur age. Great puissant creatures with a dwarfish brain. Great, puissant, powerful creatures of great power, but with a dwarfish brain. And pygmy tribes imposed their small life drift. Wow. Pygmy, a very, very small size, atypically small, and puissant, and great power, powerful creatures, but with a dwarfish brain. And pygmy tribes imposed their small life drift. In a dwarf model of humanity, nature now launched the extreme experience and master point of her design's caprice, luminous result of her half-conscious climb on rungs twixt her sublimities and grotesques to massive from infinitesimal shapes to a subtle balancing of body and soul, to an order of intelligent littleness. Ashwapati is seeing all these things. He's seeing this attempt of nature, her caprice, actually. So he sees these great puissant creatures. He sees these pygmy tribes, and that's a dwarf model of humanity, in which nature is now launching the extreme experience and the master point of her design's caprice. A caprice is fancy or whim. And that is a luminous result of her half-conscious climb on rungs twixt. Twixt is a contraction of betwixt. It actually means between. On rungs twixt her sublimities and grotesques, to massive, from infinitesimal shapes, to a subtle balancing of body and soul, to an order of intelligent littleness. We've read quite a bit today. Can I have someone read the entire passage from where we started? I can't see any of the people because I'm blocked out from that with my thing. Here we are now. How about Eugen?
Yeah, I can do that.
Good.
Invoking in world time the timeless truth, bliss changed to sorrow, knowledge made ignorant, God's force turned into a child's helplessness, can bring down heaven by their sacrifice. A contradiction founds the base of life. The eternal, the divine reality, has faced itself with its own contraries. Being became the void and conscious force, nescience and walk of a blind energy, and ecstasy took the figure of world pain. In a mysterious dispensation's law, a wisdom that prepares its far-off hands, planned soul to start her slow Ionic game. A blindfold search and wrestle and fumbling clasp of a half-seen nature and a hidden soul. A game of hide and seek in twilit rooms, a play of love and hate and fear and hope, continues in the nursery of mind, its hard and heavy romp of self-bound twins. At last the struggling energy can emerge. Can you move the text? And meet the voiceless being in a wider field. Then can they see and speak, and breast to breast, in a larger consciousness, a clearer light. The two embrace and strive, and each know, each regarding closer now, the playmate's face. Even in these formless coilings he could feel Meadows' response to an infant stir of soul. In nature he saw the mighty spirit concealed, watched the weak birth of a tremendous force, pursued the riddle of Godhead's tentative pace, heard the faint rhythms of a great unborn youth. Then came a fierer breath of waking life, and there arose from the dim gulf of things the strange creations of a thinking sense, existences half real and half dream. A life was there that hoped not to survive. Beings were born who perished without trace. Events that were a formless drama's limbs, and actions driven by a blind creature will. A seeking power found out its road to form. Patterns were built of love and joy and pain, and symbol figures for the moods of life. An insect hedonism fluttered and crawled, and basked in a sunlit nature's surface thrills, and dragon raptures, python agonies, crawled in the marsh and mire and licked the sun. Huge armored strengths shook a frail, quaking ground. Great puissant creatures with a dwarfish brain and pygmy tribes imposed their small life drift. In a dwarf model of humanity, nature now launched the extreme experience and master point of her design's caprice, luminous result of her half-conscious climb on rocks twixt her sublimities and grotesques, to massive from infinitesimal shapes to a subtle balancing of body and soul, to an order of intelligent littleness. Around him, in the moment bathes of time, the kingdom of the animal self arose, where deed is all and mind is still half born, and the heart obeys a dumb, unseen control.
I think that's where we ended.
Okay.
We ended a little bit above that, but that's fine. Thank you, Organ. Very well done. Namaste, all.
Can I ask a question,
Namaste.
Narad?
Yes, you can, of course.
Did Sri Aurobindo say that Shakespeare was writing from the overmind?
Very often. And he quotes even the lines that came from the overmind in the future poetry.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.